issue with, which is worldwide. Of course, we're doing this wonderful launch through Zoom, which is obviously what is happening worldwide. It's a little bit new to me. I have done a few of these things before, but usually in a different type of setting. And so if anything does go wrong, obviously we've got Liana and I will be told. But at this stage, again, I appreciate your time. We're going to talk about a book that I've just released, and it's called Peeling a Seedless Moon, and this is it right here. It's the third book of the series, if you like, that I'm writing, and it's really it's like Star Wars. It's the third book, but it's part one. It's the prequel to the Goodbye Charlie books, and I had a lot of fun writing this book. Actually, I started writing it as a very young man in 1994. I had the first draft of it, and I went back to it after I finished part two of Goodbye Charlie, because I just thought that, without knowing, maybe unconsciously, the character is exactly the same. And it's not Charlie, but it's Alistair. If anyone has read one of the Goodbye Charlie books, there's two main characters. One is Charlie, of course, but the really main character, or the spiritual character, if you like, is Alistair, who talks to Charlie and goes and meets Charlie in his last 8 weeks. That is Charlie's last eight weeks on the earth. And Alistair asks him questions about his life and spends every day with him and gets to know him quite well. Then he goes around the world talking to people, that's Alistair, of course, about Charlie and finding out who this character was. And that is the premise of the book, Goodbye Charlie, which, as you may or may not know, is autobiographical. So all the stories in Goodbye Charlie 1 and 2 are absolutely true. We only changed the names of the people and added two fictitious characters, one being Alistair, and the other is Alistair's boss, who's a bit mean and wants Alistair to write in opposition to what Charlie wants. So he wants to look at Charlie's other side, which was a lot of fun for me because I had, in a way, an opportunity to use humor and to also point out some of the big mistakes I've made in my life and maybe how others may see me. And because we all have those two characters within us, the one that people see us as and the one that we want to be seen as. And I think in Goodbye Charlie, Alistair is the mediator, if you like, between Charlie and his boss. And therefore he becomes, in a way, the main character because it's Alistair's journey through Charlie's life. In Peeling a Seedless Moon, this one that we're talking about today, it's about Alistair prior to meeting Charlie, his life on the road a little bit. It's set in a fictitious city, probably somewhere in Brazil, because they do speak Portuguese, although the book is written in English, of course. There is a copy in Spanish. And I would say that it's an existential book. It's the life of a person who's trying to find themselves and in the meantime observes the world and its absurdity, if you like. Alistair obviously is running from something, we don't know what, and hopefully by the end of the book we make sense of it. And he's quite cautious, but there's an opportunity for him to be happy in this book. And he's worried because, in a way, through his routine, which is relatively simple and possibly boring in a way, because he goes to work, catches a bus, comes back, he has a certain safety where he knows what's happening and he has full control. But when he meets someone that may become a romantic involvement, then he's quite weary about it. And it's really it's the book where it's a triumph of love, hopefully. And in the end, we hopefully go through that journey through Alistair. So that's Peeling a Seedless Moon. There's probably going to be a question why the title, which I've been asked many times. I found out that when I reread it, I mentioned the moon quite a fair bit, and it's it's a wonderful romantic symbol, the moon. Many poets, many painters, many of us have lived those nights where we reflect and the moon's accompanying us, and we don't feel alone. And there's something sad about the moon, isn't there? And that's what Alistair finds when he looks up at the moon when he's on his own in his little apartment, looking through the window in a city where he doesn't belong. And the moon is looking down on him, and he feels that it's the face of a sad woman, a sad woman looking down on him from the sky. And she's sad because, in a way, she looks down on herself and she can't find a way to continue living, after her life would in the end inevitably finish, because she's infertile in a way, and that makes her quite sad. And so he finds that relationship with the moon, and so he tries to understand this. So he's peeling the layers of a seedless moon, because in a way there's no seed and therefore no future to continue. But despite the pessimistic premise of this moon and the topic, we find that both the moon and Alistair find comfort and a way out of this pessimism, which in the end helps him embrace what he does have and appreciate the things that the universe has given him, as opposed to lamenting the things that he does not have or wishes he had. And I hope that point comes through clearly in peeling a seedless moon, because it's the main point. As you all know, I'm a psychologist, and I'm very interested in making people happy, not upset. So hopefully that comes through, not by being spoon-fed, but hopefully reading between the lines. And that's how I like my books to come across, because that's the kind of books I like reading myself, and the kind of movies I like reading. Watching, because there's something fascinating about using our own imagination when we're looking at art, whether it's film, books, painting, and other mediums such as music. We find that when we're not given every single answer, we can fill in the spaces. And I personally find that very appealing whenever I'm confronted with any form of art. And so I've tried very hard to be subtle and not to use too many cliches, and allow the reader to make their own journey with Alistair, hand in hand. And at the end, hopefully, when they close the book, they will get something psychological, which is positive out of it, despite the intertwined dark side that the book also displays. Because I feel philosophically and psychologically that life is a mixture of those two things, of sadness and of happiness. And whilst in our fantasy we can expect or want or desire ourselves to be happy all the time, the reality is that that's not the case. If you're alive, there will be a mixture of both. Like the Chinese say, the yin and the yang, the dark and the light. And it's not a matter of, I feel, trying to pretend it's not there or escape it, but on the contrary, embracing it, because once we understand it and we know it's going to happen, we will be ready. And we know it's also temporary, because happiness is around the corner. That's peeling a seedless moon. And if you do get a copy of it, there's the library, of course, that will have copies for you. And I would love to hear your feedback, whether it be constructive or destructive. As some people say, only constructive criticism is great. But I find as well that if anyone takes any time whatsoever to comment or to send me an email, and they can't get the words around how to be diplomatic, but totally decide that they just want to be straightforward, I appreciate that too. One, because of your time again, and two, because I prefer some feedback than no feedback. And of course, we all know through social media that the people that dislike something are usually more vocal than the ones that do. And I find a lot of comfort in getting any type of comment. And because I will use that for my next book, which I'm writing already, and Alistair is in it again, and it's based on Honey's life a few years after all the Peeling a Seedless Moon and the Charlie incidents. But that for later, my friends. For now, it's Peeling a Seedless Moon, short book, 200 odd pages. I think I've written it in a simple manner for everyone. You don't have to be a philosophical scholar to follow it, or a literary fan. I think it's aimed at all ages, and it's hopefully something that there is philosophy in between each line. There are dialogues where different characters talk and they have different opinions, and I like doing that, as you would know if you've read Peeling a Seedless Goodbye Charlie. All right, I think that is my little spiel with the introduction of this book. It can be purchased in many areas. All you got to do is type in my name and the name of the book in any or one of your favorite search engines, and it will come up. There are quite a few. There are at least 20 places you can find this, in some big ones and some small ones, and some that are much cheaper. So don't go for the big outlets, because there are cheaper ones. There are even some very cheap and even sometimes free copies that are ebooks as well, if you're interested in that, Spanish and English. I would like to open up now if anyone wants to have a comment.
Hi, Carlos. We've got a question here from Karen in the Q&A. What challenges did you face with writing this book?
Yes, there's always challenges for those people who so I'm just turning my my volume up a bit to hear. I always start with a premise, or at least try to convince myself that whenever I do anything, even this now, I always try to work out how much fun can I have with it, because life is too short to do things that give us satisfaction. So it gave me a lot of satisfaction every single time. I'm very disciplined, so that helps with the writing. As you know, for anyone that's ever started a work of art, such as a novel, which is very involved, it takes a long time, and there are days where you do struggle. But when I get to those days, I kind of like leave it, and as long as I write at least one sentence that day, I usually have a certain quota on myself. And if I miss something, then I try to make sure I make up for it the following day. But it does take me a long time. Goodbye Charlie book took me 4 years to write, a little bit at a time. This one took me 2 years plus another year of revision, and I'm happy with that. And so therefore, I've never really struggled with it. By the time I went back each day to write something, I would read the last few sentences, maybe the last paragraph, and just try to get myself in the zone where the characters are, and whatever comes to my head, as soon as I finish reading that last sentence, I just type it out and then fix it up a little bit later. But the big challenge, I think, if I were to pick one, not so much with the actual time with writing, would be making sure I was as subtle as possible with all my with my wording. Again, I didn't want it to sound like a book that I'm giving my own opinions on things. I wanted to leave it open for the reader to have different interpretations. I think it's one of those books where you find that you have 10 people read it and 10 people have a different opinion of what actually happened. what they meant by certain things. And that was my challenge, because that's the type of book I wanted. And it's not easy to be subtle and economical with words, very difficult. Anyone can write a lot. The trick with writing, which I'm still learning, is to write economically, to use the less amount of words possible to say the same thing. That is what I love. All my favorite authors are very economical, and their books are usually quite small, like Gabriel Garcia Marquez and Albert Camus and Jean-Paul Sartre, and there's people like Franz Kafka who can give wonderful short stories, short novels would call them these days, and it leaves you with wanting more, and that's the challenge. The hardest thing of all the books I've written is to write the back page, to get the summary of the whole book in one paragraph or in 70 words. It's extremely difficult. Like I said, anyone can write. Anyone that knows how to read and write can write. The beauty of creative writing and keeping the reader busy and interested is to write succinct, brief, economical, but with a certain subtlety that allows the reader to pause as they're reading and try to use their imagination. That is the hardest part. It always will be. So that's the challenge.
We've got a couple more questions. One from LW: has COVID affected your future writing?
COVID? What? Did you say COVID? Sorry. Yep.
Yes, COVID-19.
It's. I think it's affected all of us in the sense that, like I said, I'm quite disciplined, so it took me out of my structure a little bit. My routine was changed because of it, and so I had to come up with some new routines because my work hours changed a little bit. The way I worked, being a psychologist, I did a lot more, and I'm doing a lot more telehealth sessions and so forth. But in the end, for example, by the time COVID had come, this book had been already finalized. So the book I'm writing now, the fourth book, definitely has affected my routine with writing it. And I haven't touched it actually for the last couple of months. And I see it every time I go on my desktop. I see the file, and I look at it and I say, should I open it? And my mind isn't just on it at the moment. But actually, about 2 weeks ago, I opened it and went to the last bit, because it's pretty much the structure's written, and I leave highlighted in yellow, whatever color one chooses, just to know where I'm at. And I reread that bit, and I got excited again. I go, well, this is where we're at. Okay, but I didn't end up writing anything. I just proofread a couple of things that just get me refreshed. But definitely, it has affected my routine, which I'm still working out, because, as you know, we've had the March-April issues, and then we had the July-August issues. So we're getting back into routine, and then July and August came, and now we're back in the flattened curve. But we're all kind of like worried that there might be another peak. So most of us aren't too committed to cementing a routine. But I think now I've already come up with a good plan for the rest of the year. Starting from October, I'm allowing September to go by due to other personal things that I have. I've just moved house, and as you all know, selling a house and buying a house and moving into a house it takes up a lot of time. So that's taken most of my time. And as you see, this room sounds a little bit echoey because I still don't have, there's an empty shelf up there. Still don't have most of my furniture in my studio. I had a wonderful studio in my old house. This is a lovelier house and in a lovelier place. But I miss my little studio, which was nice, small, and it was all decked out for recording, because I do a podcast as well. And I also dabble in a little bit of recording of music. So it was treated, as the sound engineers say, for audio. And this one will be as well, but early days. But October, definitely, I'll be back on track, probably writing 2 or 3 sentences a day. That's all. I'm not going to put too much pressure on myself. I like a saying that says, set yourself up for success, not for failure. If I try to write a page a day or 15,000 words a month, like I was doing with Goodbye Charlie, which sounds like a lot, but it's not that much really. It's only half a page a day, 15,000 words a month. Then I might find that I might miss a couple of days and then fall behind and demotivate myself. So I'll put for October 2-3 sentences, then November about a paragraph a day, and then by next year I'll let Christmas go by. I'll be doing a page a day through the holidays, and as long as the weather's not too nice, I'll be going out to the beach.
Okay, we've got a question from Karen again on, can you read some of this book?
Yes, I'd love to. Thank you. I've been thinking about what part I should read. I'm not going to give too much away, so I won't read anything from the end. But I think there's, just for you to capture the type of character Alastair is, and people ask, is Alastair part of you? And I thought no, but I wish he was. Alastair is a very, in a way, a person who analyzes a lot the world. He's very introspective, quiet, and very, very sarcastic. And but he doesn't say, he's too polite to say anything, but he does think it's a lot of the thought processes is a dialogue within Alastair's head, which the reader gets, and hopefully creates an opportunity for humour. But I'll decide I'm going to read a little part here where Alastair goes for a little walk through the streets on his own, and on a Tuesday night, which on Tuesday nights everything's closed in this city. It's quite drastic, the change of the city on a Tuesday, and he finds a lot of solace in that, because he, being quite an introverted person, likes his own company, so he decides to go for a stroll, and finds this back street and a bar where seems a little bit clandestine, where not many people know what it's about, and that place exists. And he walks in and he meets a lady, and I think this little part here just shows what type of temperament he has, because he's quite unusual in the sense that he's not very interested in other people, even in a beautiful woman who approaches him, and he can still be quite worried about what he might say and what he might do, but also allowing people into his life. So I'm going to pick up. I'm going to pick up where they're already having a drink. They're having a conversation, and I'll just read. It's a couple of pages from the end of chapter 2. And I'm just going to put my glasses. I'm using my glasses like these days, because I find that it's just a lot easier when I read to take them off and on. Right, so they're in the bar, talking to the girl. It's had a few drinks already. For some reason, I think of my bed and my pillow, my clean bed and fluffy pillow, waiting for me. I would have been better off staying in tonight, but then again, I would not have found out that people who study commerce can become doctors. Here, I'll give you a hand. She extends her hand, the hand she wiped her chin with. I look at it, and it takes on a life of its own. It's a clammy hand with its guts hanging out. I know when I touch it, it will disembowel itself all over me and smear me with its flesh until I become part of it. And it will become bigger, eventually taking over the city, turning it into a big blot. She takes my hand and tries to lift me. There's a movie with Steve McQueen in it, I say. He was young. I don't know what it was called in Portuguese, but she lands on top of me and I feel the vomit splat with her weight. She lifts her head, looks at me, apologizes, and then starts cackling. She laughs uncontrollably, loudly, her cheeks, her cackles reverberating off the cubicle walls. They were in the bathroom, I forgot to tell you at this stage. I hear someone walk into the toilet and I cover her mouth with my hand. Are you all right there? A woman voice asks. Yes, thank you. You're a man. Penelope shrieks with laughter, drowning out something the woman says before she walks out. Fearing security might come crashing in, I try to get up, holding on to the toilet seat and part of the door. I manage to lift Penelope back onto the seat and open the door. I feel like I am crawling out of a sewer. I see myself in the mirror and it crosses my mind that what my mother would say were she to see me like this. We've got to go, I say urgently. I walk out of the toilet with Penelope in front of me. I'm pulling her head down so people realize she's sick. I hand the tokens to the guy at the bar and he looks at me and sniffs, trying to make out what's all over my body. How much? I say before he can ask. What's all that stuff? She was sick. How much? Are those tokens clean? I made sure they weren't affected. He looks at Penelope. Did you manage to get your head in the toilet this time? And this is Alistair thinking out loud. Yeah, can't you tell? And I later wash my clothes in the toilet. She doesn't answer except to giggle. I'm afraid she missed the toilet and there's a bit on the floor. He sighs in exasperation. Great. Who's going to clean it up this time? What am I going to do with you, Penelope? I'm sorry about your floor, I say as I roll up the sleeve of my shirt that has the most vomit on it. He slides the tokens into a cloth, muttering 1,700 crusades, try not to touch them. I pay him. As I turn towards the door, I see my bed floating outside with the blankets flowing slowly to the hum of the mild wind. Goodbye, I say and shake her hand. I'm sorry about your clothes. She has sobered up suddenly. I'm really sorry. That's fine. I enjoyed it. The bartender gives me a strange look. How are you getting home? I add. I can still see my bed floating outside. She takes a taxi home, the bartender says. Can you call her one? Please make it quick. All right, wait outside. We walk out. The night is amazing. The sun's first rays are about to pierce the sky any moment. I can hear the rumble of several trucks on the main road. I love this time of the night, first light. The city is still essentially asleep, but the alarm is about to go off soon for the human race to begin. No shower, no breakfast, no kisses goodbye to the children, just straight into the idiotic neurosis of the running beast. This is truly a great time to be alive. The breeze pampers my face and I feel it crawl through my hair. Although mild, it feels cold against my wet shirt and I shiver. She wraps her arm around mine and leans the weight of her body against me. She feels warm and soft, but most of all, clean. I can sense she wants to say something, but she's too drunk. Appreciating her silence, I stay there for a few minutes, feeling the wind and the touch of her hand. My eyes gaze at her once more, and she reminds me of a little girl I once knew at a park when I was only 9 years of age. She has that virtue some people possess that makes me feel like holding them. The taxi arrives with its lights on high beam. Penelope tucks her face into my arm to avoid them shining into her eyes. Thank you, she says as she opens the passenger door. I start walking home. The taxi cruises past me and her hand reaches out for mine. I feel her touch for the last time and almost see her face, but the wind drapes her hair across it, hiding it from view. The taxi turns the corner, its red taillights disappearing, taking with them now just memories. I rub my eyes and walk home by the same streets I reached there. I pass the graffiti painting, and it doesn't look as good in the daylight. Night hides the ugliness. The light of the moon has made many artists famous. Walking slowly, the city is still all mine, but I don't want it now. I think of the cool water coming out of my shower and my soft, loyal bed that waits for me like a worried mother. That's the end of chapter 2.
Okay, we've got a couple more questions. They just keep coming. LW has asked, what is your favorite book? So I might just add in, what is your favorite book that you've written? And maybe what is the favorite book that you've read? Just to add a little bit of difference there.
Yeah. To tell the truth, my favorite book is this one now. I thought it just captured, like I said, I wrote it in 1994. And I was only 27 years of age then. I'm 53 now. And I started writing the premise for it. And I can still see the young man there. And of course, I've updated it with better grammar and better and better sentences. And of course, proofread it to the point where it flows. But when I finished writing it, I felt very happy. My other two books, I would say would be Peeling a Seedless Moon, Goodbye Charlie 1, then Goodbye Charlie 2. And Goodbye Charlie 2 is in third place only because the second part of Goodbye Charlie really talks about really tough times that I went through myself. The part 1 is a lot about childhood, adolescence, and freedom and so forth, and finding oneself. Part 2 talks about some difficult times, some bad decisions I've made, and how I've overcome them. And despite them being now in the past and not part of my life anymore in the sense that they affect me, it was still a chore. And I always, when I got to the stage where, because it's written chronologically, and that I knew I had to talk about these sensitive issues, because I tried to write with no warts hidden, so to speak, and try to be sincere. Something that I learned from one of my favorite books to talk about, which is Papillon, that sincerity. If you're going to write an autobiographical novel, it's important that that you write the good stuff and the bad stuff. So I didn't enjoy, like I said, I like doing things for fun. I didn't enjoy the process of those memories flooding back, but it was very therapeutic as well. And that's why it would be number 3. If I were to have to read a whole book for someone now, I'd pick Peeling a Seedless Moon, maybe because it's more fresh. And after a while, anyone that's written anything will know that you kind of like don't want to talk about it or read, let alone read it for a little while, because it's taken so much out of one. And I'm very happy with how concise this book is. And as you saw in that chapter, in 2.5 pages, there's a lot of things happened. They came out of the toilet, they waited for the taxi away, and he's already walking home, and without dragging much on. And I really enjoyed that, the way that's come out. So I would say that would be my favorite book that I've written. And hopefully the next one I'm writing would be my favorite one, which means I'm I'm progressing as an author. My favorite book would be Papillon to read. I read it when I was 20. I read it again when I was 40, and I'm planning to read it again when I'm 60. I've actually, you might even see, there's a few copies behind there of Papillon. Papillon, for those that don't know, it's a book about a guy whose nickname is Papillon, which means butterfly in French. And he was a criminal. He had a tattoo of butterfly on his chest, and that's why they called him Papillon. And it's real. It's an autobiography. Came out in 1971. And Papillon, or Henry Charietti, who's the person who's Papillon, wrote the book after he was sentenced to life imprisonment in French Guiana and in the 20s, very harsh conditions. And he escaped finally after attempting 13 times. He finally escaped from a place called Devil's Island. A movie was made out of it in the 70s. And Steve McQueen, actually, who we named now in my book, portrayed Papillon, and Dustin Hoffman was his mate. And it's just a wonderful book. If you haven't read it, I'll strongly recommend it, because when I'm in a bit of a pickle, I always wonder, oh, well, Papillon had it worse and he got out of it. And so it's just so uplifting. It's like the story of the people who survived the crash in the Andes and that they did what they had to do. It's about the human spirit, never wanting to give in, always fighting for freedom and life. And that's what I get from Papillon. It's such a therapeutic book. It's amazing that one person can survive such harsh conditions and live to write about it. Beautiful. And so I don't want to overread it because I've got albums like Pink Floyd, The Wall, which I listen to every now and then because I don't want to over listen to it only at certain times of my life, or the Disintegration album by The Cure. Few albums where I'm very picky at the times where I want to listen to it because I don't want to get too used to it. I want to be excited about listening to it again. That would be my favorite book. Another of the books that have influence in my style of writing would be The Stranger or The Outsider by Albert Camus, Camus, written in 1945, actually at the end of the Second World War. Albert Camus was a French writer again, but Algerian born, and again went through very, very harsh times. He was born very, very poor. His father died when he was only 1 year of age. His mother was blind, and he became an author because a teacher saw that he had a gift, and he still wasn't going to be an author. He was teaching, and at 25 he got tuberculosis, and he started writing, and he won a Nobel Peace Prize in the early 60s, and unfortunately passed away immediately after in a car accident, very young, in his late 40s. But a wonderful writer. What I got from Albert Camus is the sense of economy of words. The Outside is 150 pages, and it's one of the greatest books ever written. It actually still is one of the best-selling books in Europe, and it had a lot of influence in the young people at the time as well because of its focus on freedom and individuality. And it's a mixture of the yin and the yang. It's got some sad parts and some happy parts, but he was my main influence in the style that I like and the style that I would like to write myself, which most suits me. So that would be my two favorite books: Papillon by Henry Charrieri and The Outsider by Albert Camus. Papillon is a large book, 600 pages, but every page is wonderful and very easy to follow because he's not an author. He's just an average person writing a book. Camus is an author. He writes beautifully, and the sentences that are put together is just poetry. It's so short that it's almost like a long poem, and it's wonderful.
Okay, we've got another one that I think kind of follows on from what you've just been saying. Who was your writing influence?
Yeah, Albert Camus, of course, and I actually did a thesis on him because I as you know, I'm a psychologist, but I actually studied philosophy and I did an honours thesis, and I started a doctorate thesis as well. And my thesis was on existentialism, which is part of the movement in the 60s, 40s, 50s, 60s with regards to literature, but not only literature, painting and music and so forth, which came after the surreal or cubism movement, which existentialism emphasizes that there is no essence in individuals. We just create our life as we go along. So, but that freedom also causes anxiety. That's where we get the term existential anxiety from. The fact that sometimes we have so many choices that it causes us to feel uncertainty because we don't know, because we're creating our life as we go along. There's no plan. It's just looking like into an abyss. It's almost quite frightening. So making decisions and feeling confronted with one's own freedom causes anxiety. And that, I think, has been proven by the research. That's why we find, as a psychologist, I'm quite exposed to it every day with regards to depression in industrialized countries, especially with young people. There is a high suicide rate with teenagers in Australia, in the United States, in all industrialized countries. And I think it's because of that, because they're confronted with so many choices, so many options, that it becomes mind-blowing for them, where people in the past, usually up to about 50 years ago, have always had a really structured life. They knew where they were going to live. They knew roughly all the people in the neighborhood. They grew up there. They had friends for a very long time. Depending on their religion or culture, they had certain structures already set up for them. And despite looking at that from a modern eye, it did create a lot of certainty and less chance to feel that existential anxiety or depression. And even though we know depression can be genetic, it's just like chemical, just like schizophrenia is, because we know in the past people have had that. There was less reactive anxiety and reactive depression because of the certainty that the world had. Whether it was right or wrong, there was certainty. Everyone knew their role, and everyone knew or believed in certain things that were true in their mind and created a great structure. And so my influence of the existentialists, and especially Albert Camus, is quite considerable, not only as an author but also as a psychologist. And but I have other heroes, if you like, literary heroes. One of them being a Uruguayan author called Eduardo Galeano, who's a wonderful writer, and you can get his books in English too. Very economical, extremely economical. He actually writes in little paragraphs and just divides each paragraph are separate, so you get little stories as you go along, and it's just a wonderful. Just like Friedrich Nietzsche, the German philosopher from the turn of the 20th century, who wrote in little pieces, but you got a beautiful sense of the whole once you read the book entirely. And but these people, of course, they have, in a way, a gift. It's just like those people that have talent for sport or playing the guitar, whatever. Yes, you can learn all that for sure, but some people just are born with something, a certain connection in their brain that's just wonderful. And these writers, yeah, they're in a different league, and so it's good to aim high. Of course, I'm not gonna never reach those heights, because I'm aware of my own obstacles and weaknesses, and one of them is that I have two great languages, very, very good languages, English and Spanish, because I lived in both parts. But great authors have one excellent language. They have such a control of that language that they have a thesaurus in their head, so they find the right word. And so when you don't have that, like I don't have, then it takes a lot more time, and that's why I write very, very slowly, because I'm aware that I'm limited. And there's not much I can do about that now, because it's apart from just trying to learn and from others, and trying to improve my literary mind. But those type of things, it's like kicking a ball or like learning a language. When you do it when you're young, then you've got it for life. And so when you don't, then you can do it as an adult, but it takes a lot more time. And so I admire these people, and I'm also aware that I've got a lot to go. But I do like basing where I want to go to and aiming very, very high indeed. Yeah.
Wonderful. And we've got a question here from Karen about what did you miss during COVID lockdown? So when we were all in our houses and locked away from the world, what did you miss the most?
I love having a good balance in life. So I'm not one of those workaholics. I love being busy, but I'm very serious at play. I love going out. I love getting together with friends and going out for dinner, or going to a bar, or going to a place where there's music, or seeing a band. And I have throughout the year always structured with my family and friends time to do that, always. So I missed going into the city, staying overnight in a wonderful hotel, and just enjoying the nightlife. I'm a bohemian at heart. I get up very early in the morning these days, because I want to get a lot done. But if I was living in a more natural state, I'd probably go to bed very late and use the night, because I'm quite nocturnal, a bit like Alistair and the moon. And I think that's one of the things I have, same as Alistair, that we both love the night and the moon, and I feel more inspired during that time. But with work and so forth, I want to be clear-headed, so I get to bed at a certain time, and I get up early and I do some of my work early in the morning. So what I missed was the play part. I still exercise and have my routine, but yeah, those weekends that you look forward to, knowing that, oh, I'm going to see John, I'm going to see Fernando, I'm going to see a friend of mine, I'm going to catch up with some good friends, we're going to have a cocktail or two and discuss books and philosophy, or just have fun, and go out for a dance and stay in a nice place. Which we have certain things that we do at least once a month. In winter, maybe once every 6 weeks, but I miss that. Hopefully that changes over the next little while, so we can all get back to having a bit of balance.
Cool, and I think this will probably be our last question, because it seems to be a two-parter from LW.
Mm-hmm.
Would you ever let these books become a movie or TV show? And if you would, who would you want to play the characters?
That's a wonderful question, isn't it? Well, I would love to be, of course, who wouldn't? When I was studying psychology in the 90s, I took up, well, my two majors were psychology, or behavioral psychology and behavioral sciences, and the other major was sociology and anthropology, which I absolutely loved. And I was very close in becoming an anthropologist, studying cultures and living in places. And I was really I was in my element there. And I remember actually, just on that, my anthropology and sociology teacher trying to convince me to do my master's there. And in the end, I said, no, I came to study psychology and I did my master's, and I don't regret it. But my minor, I had a minor called creative writing. And that's why I also started being interested. And that's when I started writing Peeling a Seedless Moon as well. After I finished that course, I thought, I'm going to give it a go at a novel. But one of the things I did in creative writing was open up a theatre club. There was no theatre club at this university, and I never studied drama or anything, but I opened up a theatre club and I wrote a couple of plays. And there's nothing more fascinating for a writer to see those words materialize on stage. It's just amazing. You're right. Playwriting is absolutely an incredible process. You get these characters in your head, you write them, then people practice it, and then opening night, you see it materialize. It's something that no other medium of art can offer. A movie, well, that would be like the next step up for me. That just to see that, I'll probably be disappointed with some of the things, so they'll Hollywoodize it, of course. But I would love, why not? Yeah, it would be amazing, whether I got paid for it or not, just to see what someone that's a good director and a good producer and some good actors to put their spin on it, because I think that's important too. I wouldn't be one of those writers that hang around the sets. I wouldn't have that much leverage anyway, unless I was Stephen King. So I don't think they would care what I'd say, but I'd love to see what they got from it. Like I said, my books hopefully are left for interpretation. But wow, playing it. Some people have told me who they'll think would play Charlie, for example, and there was a couple of actors, and one of them was Benito del Toro, who's a Latin actor who played Che Guevara in the documentaries, and he'll do all right, because he's got that South American look a little bit. Plus, he's also got the English and the Spanish, a bit like I was talking to about. And he's a wonderful actor. And the other one, again, same, would be what's his name, Javier. I forgot his surname now, but he's an incredible actor. Javier Benitez, is it? I think, yeah. He's done. These are actors that were actors like that did a lot of theatre, and so Javier Bardem, He was in a couple of big Hollywood movies, but he doesn't do many big ones. He picks his movies, and a bit like Johnny Depp used to do before Pirates of the Caribbean, that more like art house type thing. But wonderful actors. I would be happy with anyone, to tell the truth. For Alistair, yeah, I don't know. He's such a strange character, but depending on what age, there's a couple of actors that are probably a bit too old that I would like for them to play him. But I think someone that is capable of being quite introspective and saying a lot with their face, because a lot of Alistair's dialogues is thinking out loud. So a character that is capable of showing with their face would have to be a theatre actor, someone that has that training. And yeah, I'd be happy with anyone, to tell the truth. But yes, definitely like to see it as materialize, and to see what interpretation someone else has of it.
Okay, and we're about 5 minutes out, so if anyone has any extra questions, or if you'd like to give us a final thought about Healing a Seedless Moon, this is your chance.
And you can feel free to email me as well. My email is Carlos Camacho email@gmail. So it's Carlos Camacho, then the word email, email @gmail.com. I love hearing from people. I get lots of texts and emails, and yeah, actually, my email is always in my books as well. So like I said, for any recommendation, it's wonderful. I'm also on social media. I can be contacted through Instagram, which is Carlos Alive. Usually, you'll find me through Carlos Alive on Facebook as well. I have a psychology page and writing page called Carlos Alive, and same as Instagram. So and I get a lot of texts through those two, which I always respond to one way or another. So I'll be thrilled actually to hear from anyone that gives me their time and so forth.
Okay, so we might do one last thing, Carlos. If I could get you just to hold a really cool pose with your book. Anyone who wants to take a selfie now with you, even if it's through the phone, can do so. Okay. So hopefully everyone's got themselves a selfie. Even if we can't see you in person, we can
excellent.
Document the moment.
Maybe you can forward one of those to Steven Spielberg, see if he's interested in making a movie.
You never know. I'm sure Lorraine Moriarty was saying something similar before Little Big Lies got turned into the phenomenon that it now is. So
that's right. That's right. You never know. You never know.
2020, I think, has shown us that just about anything can happen at any time.
Exactly. Exactly.
So who knows? Maybe next time we see you, you'll be a famous author, writer, and producer.
On the red carpet fighting off photographers and well, that's always nice. I prefer, look, if that happens, of course, who wouldn't? But the premise is do it for fun, and even if I can get one person to get something out of it, I've done my job. I'm as a psychologist anyway, and I'm well aware. When I wrote my first book, I'll just leave you with this. An author called Manuel Arrighetti wrote the prologue of Goodbye Charlie, who knows me quite well as well, and he's written quite a few books. And he said to me when he handed me the book with the prologue, he said, "You got to remember this, Carlos. When you write a book, there's going to be 10% of people that hate it, 10% of people that love it, and 80% that won't care either way." So I always keep that in mind, that what I'm interested in is that 10% that like it, and because that's all we can do. It doesn't matter who you are. There's going to be people that don't, and so that's not the point of art. I think the point of art is to have a lot of fun doing it, and hopefully get through it to at least 10%.
Well, wonderful. It's just going 11 o'clock now, so we may finish up
Yep.
author talk. Thank you all so much for being part of this morning, and thank you, Carlos, for being
Thank
here.
you.
We're sorry that you can't be in the library just yet, but we look very much forward to having you in the library in the future.
Ah, for sure. And well, this will give me time to finish the next book, so we'll do the launch there.
Sounds perfect. Okay, thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.